So welcome to the center. Welcome on this beautiful Sunday morning. And we are really excited to get everybody here and get the service started. You guys can see some changes that are going on. We've got our seats set up differently so everybody is safe. I want to remind everybody that if we need to do some kind of physical greeting, it's the elbow bump at most. Okay, no hugging. And the other thing is that I forgot to mention is that we've got this new slideshow up, so we're not showing we're not going over all the announcements anymore at the beginning of the service because we have the slideshow with all the information, and then of course we've got the website and we've got the newsletter. So there's lots of ways to keep informed of what's going on here at the center. So again, we want to welcome everybody to West Valley Center for Spiritual Living and everybody online. And so we're starting our service off a little differently. We go straight into our meditation and start with our invocation, our reading. So if you'd just like to get comfortable in your seats and allow yourself to be carried away with the Bradford beautiful music.
I will make a quiet place within my heart, and I will wait upon the Lord, wait upon the Lord. I will make a quiet place within my mind, and I will wait upon the Lord, wait upon the Lord.
Be still, my soul, be still. Be still, my soul, be still. Be still and know. Be still, my soul, be still. Be still, my soul, be still. Be still and know.
I will make a quiet place within my life, and I will wait upon the Lord, wait upon the Lord. I will make a quiet place.
Please join me in prayer. A quiet place, that quiet place deep within our hearts and souls, that quiet place is God. God that lives in, through, and as our being, filled with love, joy, compassion. That quiet place of peace and comfort. And as God is here in this room with each one of our beings and all those who are not in attendance today, that God expresses as that love and joy and peace and compassion. And what I know of God, I know of each one of us as we are one with the divine, one with God. And I speak a word of blessing on behalf of each one of us here, those in service, those in our sanctuary, and those who are watching from outside, as we are the divine expressions of that one God. And a blessing to the Bradfords for their beautiful music that fills our hearts and souls on this beautiful Sunday morning. That music that touches our hearts and resonates that divine love. And a blessing for Reverend Clyde and Reverend Karen, knowing that her message touches our hearts and souls. Her message is the Word of God speaking through her. Her message is absolutely perfect. And knowing that truth, I am so grateful for this beautiful day, so grateful for this Sunday, so grateful for each one of us here and those beyond. And with gratitude, I release my words into the law, knowing that it is already done. It is so. And together we say, and so it is. My reading this morning is from the book called Oneness, Great Principles Shared by All Religions. And this section is called Conquer with Love. Whenever there is tension or fighting between individuals, groups, or nations, it means that a time of mutual understanding has been lost and channels of communication have not been used. Love is a unifying force. It radiates outward to resolve differences between people and nations. It is not that these unique qualities dissolve and are lost, but they are integrated into a greater whole in which they are made more useful and beautiful. Love conquers before there is fighting. Even if channels of communication have broken down and fighting breaks out, the underlying attitude should still be one of love and unification by love. Let's take a moment of contemplation. And so it is.
For the beauty of the earth, for the glory of the skies, for the love which from our birth over and around us lies, Lord of all, to Thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For the wonder of each hour of the day and of the night, hill and vale and tree and flower, sun and moon and stars of light, Lord of all, to Thee Lord of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For the beauty of the earth, for the glory of the skies, for the love which from our birth over and around us lies. Lord of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise.
Thank you, Bradford. That was beautiful. And that video was really beautiful to go along with that song. Take this mask off so I can talk to you guys. All right. So I was so excited at the beginning. I forgot to mention about the Thanksgiving. We're on Thanksgiving Eve. And so as we move into Thanksgiving, I just want us to pause over this next week and just make sure that we're counting all of our blessings. Even though 2020 has been an exciting one, there are still blessings to be counted in this year. And so please count all your blessings as we bring this year to a close. All right, so now is our time to talk about our pledge program, Seeding the Future. Our Seeding the Future pledge program, this theme this year is Letting Life Expand. When I was thinking about our theme this week, Letting Life Expand, I thought it was a little funny because we don't let life do anything. Life is always expanding. The question is, what do we do to help, or what do we do to let life expand through us? Our desires and our habits are life expressing through each one of us. Our expressions is a choice, and our foundational principles in Science of Mind is that we are always at choice. Reverend Karen reminds us every Sunday that we can choose to live the life that we want to experience. If we want more love, more abundance, more creativity, we choose to express more love, more abundance, and more creativity. This center and the board has chosen to be the shining light to help our community navigate through all the changing times. Times are changing, we are changing, and it's comforting to know that we are not doing this alone. The coronavirus catapulted us into streaming live on Facebook. The board talked about it for a couple of years, and the sudden change moved us in a new direction. Similar to Reverend Karen's story last week about Dr. Quimby, or Mr. Quimby, one Sunday we were all coming to service, loving each other up. And then the next Sunday, we were live streaming on Facebook using 3 cell phones, and we had no clue how this was going to unfold. Life is expressing through us in new ways, and all we need to do is show up, step into our faith, and choose a new way West Valley Center was going to express. One of my favorite quotes from Eric Butterworth, the book In the Flow of Life, he says, "The only decision you have to make is the decision to begin. The rest will be discovered." Our board members and a couple of the community members came together to ensure that Reverend Karen's message was being heard through Facebook Live because she reminds us of our truth. She gives us new ways to look at life and the tools to navigate through these changing times. So I want to recognize Juliana Smith. She's our secretary on our board. She took the lead on making this whole production happen. We are so blessed to have her on the board and part of our community. A lot of people know her for her great baking skills. One of my many gifts that I like about her, but most of the community doesn't know that she is our technology guru. She did not ask for the title, but life is expressing that through her on our board. She simply said yes. No one else wanted to say yes to that expression. And remember, we were catapulted into live streaming. So Julie shows up on the first Sunday and was committed to supporting Reverend Karen and serving our community. When it comes to technology, I just want somebody to tell me what to do. She stepped into her faith because she knows that she is loved and supported by the community and by the board. She created a landing net for our center so that we could express Sunday service in a new way. She created a video on how to set up your Facebook page so you can view Sunday service live. So that video is available on our website today. It's under the announcement sections on our website. So live streaming in 2020 was not a role that we were planning to roll out for West Valley Center for this year. But Julie stepped up and never looked back. We continue to fine-tune and improve our Sunday production. Julie's creativity, trust, and her intuition and faith allowed her to lead us through this technology advancement. Our Sunday services, our classes, and our community's love supports each one of us as we navigate through the changes and step out in new ways to express life. Our Seeding the Future Pledge program is about letting life expand through our spiritual home. Your commitment allows our center to continue to shine bright and to be a refuge for spiritual travelers through this journey called life. The Pledge campaign is a yearly program that we ask for you to commit your financial support for our community. Our goal this year is to collect 50 pledge cards and at least $80,000 in pledges. We only ask for your money in the form of giving intentions once a year. There's 3 primary reasons why we ask for your giving intention commitment. Number 1, it helps us set the budget, and we are good stewards of your gifts, and we ensure that we operate within the budget. Number 2, your financial support ensures the continuance of our center so we can uplift souls and transform lives. And then our third reason is it's our spiritual practice. So giving of our gifts and talents. So by completing the pledge card, you are committing to your spiritual practice and the faith in the law of circulation. So additional information about the campaign. Seeding the Future Pledge campaign goes for 4 weeks, and we're in the 2nd week right now. Each week we'll be focusing on a member of our community who is letting life express. Reverend Karen will continue to inspire us with her Sunday message. We ask that you join us in prayer, knowing the success of this program and the vitality of our community. You can mail in your pledge card. You can drop off your pledge card in the tithing box, and I think we have extra pledge cards this week. And something new, we also created an online pledge form or pledge card on our website. So you can actually go onto our website, and all you people online, you can actually go onto the website and click on that the pledge card, fill out the pledge card, hit submit, and then we will receive your commitment card. So West Valley Center for Spiritual Living has a new way of expressing life. We are now live streaming on Sunday. I want to end with a quote from Socrates that explains the secret of change. The secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but building the new. Thank you.
That means it's my turn. Good morning. Good morning. I was so tickled I'm a little loud. Can you crank me down a little bit? Thanks. When Reverend Clyde was talking about the abrupt change and how we went to live stream and we did that well, the funny thing that was going through my mind was like it actually almost feels more complicated now to go back to try and figure out how to film and have a live and music, and there's so many more complications. And I was thinking that that's because when we, like Quimby, had an abrupt, thrilling change in our life that we did not consent to, we moved into this place of total faith. We just trusted the process, and we kept putting one foot in front of the other. And so that's what we're doing right now. Right now, we're getting down to that. And thank you for being here. Hello, everybody online. So good to see you. Look, I remembered to put my shoes on today. And now here's the tricky part. We'll see if Reverend Karen can actually stand in them for 20 minutes. Because I haven't had to do that in a while. And hello, everybody here in the room. It's so wonderful to feel the energy of participants in the room. And you know, I thought it would be weird because you're all spread out and some of you are way far back. There is nothing weird about it. There is a sense of normalcy right now in this configuration because this is what we've got. This is what we're doing. And I'm just grateful for those of you who are participating in person. And I'm really grateful for the technology. So those of you who desire to stay at home and be in your PJs and drink your coffee or your mimosas, whatever your Sunday morning pleasure is, I'm glad to have you. So here we are, second Sunday back in the room, and we are second Sunday of our stewardship campaign. And the title of my message this morning is The Reciprocal Action of Love. And I really loved Kay. You did a beautiful job finding a reading. That was like right out of what I'm about to say. I just love how everything comes together. I think I've missed that piece because I've kind of been a solo act for most of the year. So today I wanted to look at this idea of love, and when I chose this theme for the message, a year ago when I selected the theme and we looked at the stewardship month and all of that, I picked this title for this Sunday because this is the Sunday before Thanksgiving. And traditionally, we have a family meeting that day where everybody that wants to can come. I see a lot of people nodding their heads because you've attended those with us before. And it's not a business meeting, but it's a space we create with really sacred intention in order to, we have a meal, we break bread together, we share ideas for our future, and we reflect on the love that we are as a spiritual community. So this morning when I'm speaking from a very personal place of honoring the sort of the soul of our community. I'm speaking very personally to the West Valley Center for Spiritual Living, and if you are not a member of the community, I am inviting you to eavesdrop. Come have a good time with us. But I wanted to anchor us in a theme of love and community and the value of that as we're looking to be good stewards and seed our future. So I want to talk about this idea. What is this reciprocal action of love? And I would say that it is that way that we let life expand. In other words, we let so we don't interfere. We don't get in the way and stop or slow the process. We create a way to be a part of that. And so there's an action in love. Think about it. Love is a very expansive quality of God. It's the nature of love to expand, and the nature of life is expansion. So divine love is in activity, and it is and that reciprocal action then implies that way that it's a movement of energy. And we're looking very specifically at participating in it. So Deepak Chopra said something really cool. Deepak said, love is a force as real as gravity. And I think that that's it's a short little statement, but as I ponder that, we have an understanding of gravity. We talk about it in term and we kind of all get it's keeping us in place. And everything orderly in the planet. It helps for all of that. We've seen movies about what happens in space when we're beyond that force of gravity. And so if I think about love as distinctly as we can think about gravity, we begin to see there are spiritual laws, universal principles that are unfolding. So let me tell you one of my favorite quotes from Dr. Ernest Holmes right out of the textbook. Love is the grandest healing and drawing power on earth. Love is the grandest healing power and a drawing power. It has this way it pulls us. And so we're talking very real now about love as a vibration, as that energetic, and we're talking about the way that love happens from the inside out. Everything starts in that inner way. So in the way that we are born as human beings, with the truth of our divinity, the spiritual nature of how we come to the planet. And so we look like we're all about physicality, and then in the spiritual path, and as we age and grow and gain wisdom, we begin to see that, there's way more going on, that we are spiritual beings having a physical experience on the planet. So as we begin to unlock those inner truths and realize and recognize that love that is God is love, it says in Scripture, that love abides within us all the time. And so when we have experiences of not being very loving, or we've had an encounter with another person where it appears that person wasn't being very loving, all that is that there's a shadow over that which is real, and everything about the spiritual path is inviting us to remember, to go back to grounding ourselves in that great, beautiful pool of truth. So I want to stir some thoughts up this morning, because I have been thinking about, I can see myself on the thing today. I could go way over here. You could still say, I could go back here. Oh, that's good. Thank you, Julie. That was really handy. But we're talking about love. I did love that, though. I did have a moment. But what I want to talk to you about is the way I have spent the last 10 days or so. We talked about it at the board meeting last Sunday. I have been diving really deep into the rich history of this spiritual community. The history of the West Valley Center for Spiritual Living, which in the very early days was called Valley Church of Religious Science. Ring a bell, Fred?
Yes, it does.
It does indeed. You know well about those early beginning days, probably better than just about anybody in the community. And we're blessed to have Fred on the board. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about this, because what I'm doing is I'm studying all the stuff we have collected through the years. And by the way, Chris Lockman did a mighty job in going through old board meetings and gathering interesting information so that I now can just look at the archival stuff that she did. I don't have to do as much hard work as she did. But what we know is that in 1976, there had been a couple of practitioners that had created a study group, and they'd been meeting for a couple years. But in 1976, they were realizing that the group was getting more and more people involved in this weekly study, and that it was time for them to consider becoming a chartered church. So in May, they reached out to Home Office, and they began that process. You have to have 50 people to begin a charter, and then by June of the same year, 1976, they incorporated. It says in the board notes, it says they paid $6.50 for that license to incorporate. So there's all kinds of interesting trivia in all that material. And what I found as I was looking at, because I'm trying to find out what was the soul, what did those people believe in, and what was this church founded on? And so I found that the first time they give mention of a vision or a mission statement was in 1987. I think in part that was probably when it got trendy to start looking at that and doing that. But that was the first one I could find, and I want to read to you their very first vision statement. The vision statement is different than the mission. The mission talks about what we do as a corporation or a community or an institution. But the vision or the purpose statement describes who we believe we are. And this is what they said at that time. The Valley Church is a community of loving individuals coming together to discover spiritual meaning in our daily lives and spiritual solutions to life's challenges through the teaching and the practice of the science of mind. They kept that pretty close to those words for many years. You could see they'd tweak it. And every time they got a new minister, it got changed a little bit. And then something happened in the 90s where some young minister came in and they rechanged everything. And so instead of just a mission and a vision, they had a tagline, and they had all kinds of other things, the core values. And so you could see that probably our organization was getting more structured and teaching ministers that process of doing that. But at some point, they no longer had that first line that said, we're a community of loving individuals. Now, I would refresh your mind, and maybe Reverend Clyde, it might be a good idea for us to start reciting that. I know we're trying not to have too much singing or affirmations, but it's so important for us. Maybe you could say it and we could read it silently or we could say it in our minds silently. But our vision statement today, which we created as a community when I first got here in 2011, it was one of the first projects I started. I put big boards up, big sticky sheets on the walls in Papke Hall. And we collected data, and then the leadership, all of the practitioners and the board members came together at my house. We all gathered around my kitchen table, and we looked at what we had gathered from the community. And we put it together. We put together a new mission statement and a new vision. And our vision statement now says, we are a loving, joy-filled community. Those are the first words. We are a loving, joy-filled community. Let me tell you what I found as I went through 40 plus years of archived information about this community. As long as they had that indication of love and the premise of who we are as a community, those were our most successful years. And when they wandered away from that, and they didn't have love at the start of that, those years then reflect in the numbers. But it's not just the numbers that the archives show us. You know what else happens in the archives is there's like newspaper articles and records of celebrations. So the times when we were the most vibrant and thriving were always the years where we had love as the very first, at the very top of the premise of who we know ourselves to be. And you know what's cool? I happened to realize, as I was putting it all together, I had it spread out all over in front of me, and I'm looking at it and trying to see what's there. How can I now really wrap my mind about the soul of this community from the very inception, the very beginning of it? I realized that we have always, whether it was in their statement or not, I'll bet you this is true, we are known as a welcoming, loving community. And people like to come here because they feel comfortable with us. So there's something in the personality that carries on because it is the soul or the heart from the very birth of the community that continues to carry on and will always be here. So in my words today, in the message this morning, I'm talking about that way that there's an action to love, but it's a reciprocal action. And love is such a great illustration of how that all works. So let me read to you first the quote where I found that term, the reciprocal action of love, from Dr. Ernest Holmes in that amazing book, A New Design for Living, which, by the way, you know, that book has only been re-released the last 2 or 3 years. And I believe that book was re-released because we need it now, because we are all individually as well as collectively creating a new design for living in our very own lives and for the future of all of us on the planet. So here's what Dr. Holmes had to say about love. Just as there is a harmonious reciprocal action of love between the infinite and its creator, its creation, we are the creation, it's the creator. As there's a harmonious reciprocal action of love between the infinite and its creation, so also there is a reciprocal action between the expression of love in terms of conditions, situations, and people in our experiences. This is a strong statement. Ride this out with me. Think about this for a minute. There is this reciprocal action always ongoing in our lives between love and all the conditions we experience. See, love is never missing, right? Right where you are, God is. Love is never limited or missing, except in our perception. There's this reciprocal action between love and our relationships with people. There's a reciprocal action between love and all of our experiences. So it is only when we are not remembering love in a given moment that life goes sort of kittywampus. That's when we bump into each other. And so what it's talking about here, what Holmes is saying when he's talking about that movement, that action, we're talking about, the law of correspondence, the law of reciprocity, which I can't always say. I'm always happy when it comes out of my mouth well. We're talking about that circular motion of life. Sometimes we talk about it as a circular spiral, upward bound. But we're talking about it circular because it is the law of circulation. And the easiest way to think about it is, it always comes back at you, right? What goes around comes around, or in a kinder way of saying it, what goes out must indeed come back. And so that's how Holmes is looking at love as the grandest healing and drawing power. It's the law of attraction. You're either attracting it or you're repelling it, depending on how aware you are of the presence of love in your own being. That's what's being said this morning. It's that it's up to us to restore our own familiarity with the presence of love in our being all the time, and that's what spiritual practice is about. That's why there's such an urgency in my messages for this past year, in all of us having a quiet time, preferably in the morning before we go out in the world, where we are silent. And a meditation practice is wonderful, but if you don't meditate, then at least sit quietly for 5 minutes somewhere every day. And I like to make my space sacred by knowing I sit in the same chair when I meditate every morning. I've done that for so long that chair just calls me, and I can get right into that practice of meditation and silence and contemplation and all the other things. So, in the most practical way, relationships end up being a really good way of looking at and understanding that reciprocal relationship we have with everything. Now, it's important to look at that at a time where we're considering stewardship, because we're talking about the reciprocity, or the giving and receiving in the law of circulation in terms of prosperity. Very specifically, we are looking this month. Reverend Clyde said to you today, I love we do this every year in stewardship. Reverend Clyde said, pray for us. We use this month by inviting you to pray, to join us in praying for the prosperity, the well-being of this spiritual community. And we do that together as a family, because we've looked at that. We're looking at the soul of who we are. And we do that well. So relationships is a great starting place because, well, you know why? Because, you can always tell when you're whoever you live with, he knows in a minute when I'm not in a good mood, right? And it's not even just my significant other. It's like the people I work with. They can pick it up. If I am not centered in love, we know that, right? And the same is true for you. When you are not centered in love, we know that too. And what we want to do is look to love each other anyway. And in fact, I want to say to you this morning that, and I thought about this long and hard, there's something beautiful in acknowledging that when we don't seem to deserve to be loved is probably when we need it the most. So when we're grumpy, that's probably when we need to be loved the most, and yet it's also probably when we're less likely to be open to receive it. Because it's a whole ongoing action and reaction. It's a relationship, as Holmes was describing it, between love, that energy inside, and all of our encounters in the world around us. So Ralph Waldo Emerson said it beautifully. It sounds rather scriptural, but listen to this. Love, and you shall be loved, because all love is mathematically just. It's proportional, right? It's an exact correspondence, Holmes would say. So people respond to us, based on that. So sometimes sometimes that's a really good, even if it's a stranger in the grocery store, if you're feeling a little tension, just take ourselves back to love. Right? It's not about the other person. It's about that love. That premise always starts within and then works to the without. So that's the place to start. And remember that our thoughts are energetic too, not just our love, but our thoughts are energetic in such a way that they can take you back to love, you can return to love, or you can wander pretty far away from it, and you will consequently have a life or a life experience that reflects that, whatever you're believing in that given moment. Oh my goodness, there's this fabulous quotation I decided at the last minute, I needed to read it to you right from the book. And I have read it on this pulpit a few times in the past, I'm sure, because it's when I even have it written in my book, K-Fave. Holmes is talking about love, and it's in the chapter on the law of attraction. So we are actually speaking about this reciprocal action of love. And Holmes says, if you feel like you need love in your life, one of the first things to do is to love everybody. Love everybody. If you have not done this, begin to do so at once. There's always more good than bad in people, and seeing the good tends to bring it forth. And this is that place where he gives us those rich words. Love is the grandest healing and drawing power on earth. It is the very reason for our being. Isn't that lovely? 298, Kay.
Thank you.
Page 298. So there's a story I was thinking about when I read that, and I played with that this weekend while I was writing all of this. There's a saying that we say sometimes in New Thought that says, if you love them enough, they will forgive you much. It's a great saying that we said a lot. I heard it a lot while I was in ministerial school. If you love them enough, they will love you much. There's a story of forgiveness here. Can you hear that? If we love enough, forgiveness is just a natural thing that we don't, then there's nothing to forgive. We just move on and we do well. And that statement is actually paraphrased from a scriptural context, from one of the parables from the book of Luke. So it's the sometimes referred to as the parable of the woman in the alabaster jar. Does that sound familiar? All the Bible scholars are. Does that sound familiar? You Bible scholars online? But here's the story. Here's how the story goes. So Jesus is right in the middle of his ministry. He's doing all his work, and they're traveling, and they're hot, and it's dusty and dirty, and people invite him to into their homes so that he can rest and clean up and be fed. He's invited for dinner in different homes. And this one particular account is where one of the Pharisees, the commentary implies they think it was a Simon, but not the disciple Simon. So the Pharisees, you may recall, because I've said it before, you don't have to know the Bible to know this, but I every now and then when I talk about the Pharisees, I like to remind us that the Pharisees were the teachers, sort of the scholarly thinkers. And the Pharisees were a little suspicious about this man named Jesus that came teaching this ministry that was a little bit different than the way that the other rabbis were delivering the Jewish message at the time. And so the Pharisees were skeptical. And often it was when they questioned Jesus and they would kind of try and trip him up to see if he was really all that people thought he was. Some of those are the best conversations that are in the New Testament. So there's a parable that suggests that Jesus was called to, the Pharisee invited him for dinner, and he comes in, and that there's this woman, and they refer to the woman as a woman of the city who was a sinner. So she may have been a prostitute. We don't know. She may have been sold into slavery as a sexual slave to her master. We don't know the details, but those things happened in those days. So anyhow, they come into the house after a day of walking and preaching and all the things that they did. And the Pharisee is the householder and a big shot. And the woman comes in. She just follows the crowd, and then she just goes right in this house, and she falls Jesus sits down, and she falls to his feet. This part you'll remember. And she starts weeping. She starts crying and weeping, and she takes her hair and she begins to clean his feet with her hair. And then she has this oil in the jar, and she puts this beautiful smelling oil on his feet. And she's kissing his feet. She's kissing them, crying. And the Pharisee says to Jesus, if you are a prophet, as they say that you are, you would know that that woman is a sinner and she should not be touching you. You would not allow her to touch you. And so Jesus says, Simon, I've something to tell you. And Simon perks up and he goes, Teacher, say on. And you can imagine he's a little bit puffed up with himself. So now Jesus goes on to tell a parable to Simon to help Simon understand what's going on here, right? So this is where it makes me laugh. It's a parable inside a parable. So Jesus goes on and he says, okay, so imagine this, Simon, that there is a certain lender that has two debtors. There are two people that are indebted to this lender. One person owes 500 denarii, and the other person only owes 50 denarii to the same loan shark. Whoever loaned the money, the guy, the loaner, I think he called him. And the loaner forgives both of their debts. He forgives the debts. In other words, never mind. We're just all clear. You don't owe me anything. And now Jesus says, so tell me, which of these two men would love the loan guy the most? Which of these two debtors would love this man the most? And then Simon answered and said, well, I believe it would be the one with the greater debt. And Jesus said, you are correct. He said, one version said, you have judged correctly. And then Jesus said, look here, do you see this woman kissing my feet, crying and cleaning my feet? And putting oil, anointing my feet with oil. You are the householder. You are the Pharisee. You should have been the one that brought me in, something to clean my feet with. You should have poured water on my feet, and you should have anointed my head with oil. You should have kissed me when you greeted me, but you did not, and she did. Therefore, I tell you, her sins, which are many, are forgiven, for she has loved much. And that's where we take that line. If you love them enough, if you love, like I like to say, big, if you love big without boundaries, you will be forgiven much. So I also this week played in an old Science of Mind magazine, and it's a few years old, and I happened to find an issue from February, the month of Valentine's, because I knew it would have some wonderful quotes on love inside of it. Science of Mind magazine is such a joy. And I found in an article by Margaret Storts. Anybody recognize that name? Margaret Storts is a sagey, older, retired minister who prolifically contributed her articles into the Science of Mind magazine for 30 or 40 years. She's just sort of well known, but all the ministers love her and respect her greatly. And Margaret Storts really is quite an accomplished writer. I love reading her stuff. But listen to this quote on love that I found that fits so beautifully with what I'm saying today. Love is an activity. When we are praying in earnest, love is silent. When we are filling our inner reservoirs with infinite love, love is silent. When we are anticipating our times with those loved ones that we care about, that anticipation is silent. But once we stride out into the world of activity, love is noisy. It grows arms and legs, and it becomes decisive. I wished I'd written that. Oh, those perfect words. We take our love out in the world. Can you hear what she's saying? It takes on a life of its own. It's not then about us going out trying to be a kind person or looking for a way to be compassionate when we're really pissed off. So there's something that I hear Margaret Storts, blessed Reverend Dr. Margaret Storts, saying. She's telling me that love inspires doingness in a way that's different than what I have thought. That there's something organic about it. When I get that love moving inside of me, when I fire that up, there's something else going on. There's something bigger. And so the question is, what are you doing? What are you doing with your love? Here's something we can ponder this week. This is your homework assignment. What are you doing with your love? Because you've got it. Right? But are we taking time to get it stirred up inside of us, to get it moving so that it can express through us? See, understand, the question isn't what are you doing so you can have more love in your life? That's not what the question is. The question is what are you doing with your God-given gift of love that is eternally abiding within you? How is it that we can stir it up so that then it just moves as an energy from us, and it benefits the world and the people and our lives and touches souls of those that we don't even know that it touches? So I think of it like this. That's a reciprocal action. Think of it like this. It's like getting your engine warmed up on a cold day. I had, when I just had my first couple of grandchildren, they came to our house in the morning. Mom and Dad had to start work early, so they dropped them off at our house every morning for a few years. And then I would take them to school. I wasn't happy about that. I don't like school carpools. Oh, so thought I was over that. I swear I said, I will never do this again. And then these cute little grandkids come and they need a grandma. And so I took them to school. And on the really cold days, I would go out in the driveway and fire up the Mustang, a different one, then I would fire up the car and I would leave the engine running so that it would warm up the engine. Now, you know, the car, if you've ever lived in the snow, you know, the car runs a lot better once the engine is warmed up. But the reason I did that was because when the engine is warmed up on this really cold day, now the heater will run in the interior of the car will be warm and cozy and comfortable for my grandchildren and for myself. And so that's what it's like. And when we look at love, it's like, that's why a spiritual practice is vital, especially in these changing, liminal times that we're living in, where we don't really see it as a finished, we don't quite have a vision yet of what we're stepping into. You know, I mean, the Sunday service is like, we don't quite have it figured out yet, but we're working at it. We're working at it. And it'll change again. But meanwhile, we keep our engine running. Oh, it's a biker song, isn't it? It makes me want to sing a song I didn't know was going to. This is why I rehearse in the mirror at home, so I don't sing randomly on the platform. Moving on quickly. So we're warming up our own inner awareness, and when I've warmed up myself, now I can go out into the noisy world, and I can be decisive with my love. I can participate as a human being in a way that then handles that energy in a reciprocal way, and we can direct at least our kind and loving and caring thoughts as we remember them. And know that we don't, realize that we all lose our patience and we all, make interesting choices, but we just come back to love. We just come back. We wake up again, we remember again, we return to love, however you want to think about it. But we want to be vitalized in that process of stirring love up in that inner place and then letting it flow through us. A successful prosperity consciousness begins with that kind of action, that kind of stirring. It's where we mentally move into that space of recognizing there's only one mind. It is the mind of God, and that mind is my mind right now. And that is how we change our mind. We literally change our mind. Think of your mind, your consciousness, as like it's not your brain. It's like it probably is like a shape like a cloud, or you image it any way you want, but it's like, think of it as it's way bigger. It's not in here. It's your consciousness. And that's also why we bump into each other, because, it's 6 feet. Notice the 6 feet distance helps a little bit in that regard. But we are changing our mind in a very literal way. I want to say physical, but it's not even really physical, is it? It's something important, and we stand on that premise. Change your thinking. Change your mind, change your thinking, you will change your life. So let's use that energy of love. I did one final thing in putting the material together this morning, and that is, I thought, what makes, I want to know why are entrepreneurs successful? Because everybody knows somebody in their life who's got that Midas touch. They just have an instinct for making the right choices and things turning out well. So I Googled that, and I read this paper that came up from the Harvard School of Business. And what I got from the article was that the number one most important ingredient for entrepreneurs is expectation. That just fits with everything we teach here. See the end and the beginning and all of that. It is about anticipating our good, and that works best when we start from that place of love. So whether we are talking about our individual lives, or we are talking about the collective consciousness or the soul of a spiritual community, we are going to start with that expectation of anticipating the good. And so I'm very grateful for your willingness to join us in having a successful stewardship program. And I want to say to you that we do have extra, if you didn't get something in the mail from us, just call and ask or send Cheryl an email. We have extras out there, and if you're here and you want to just grab one because you didn't bring it with you, the extras are out in the bookstore area, standing right in the middle of this big black trifold vision board. The results of the visioning that this spiritual community did for the reopening of our center. And so if nothing else, you might want to walk by and see it anyhow. It's pretty cool. So that's all. Let's expect to encounter it, but more than that, let's be a part of the doingness by activating the experience of love in our own being. So I want to pray about it. I want to take a moment for us to turn within to that precious, sacred place of the Most High. Indeed, that place where love abides. And we just feel the love of God within us, stirring truth, the eternal and the internal certainty of life itself, the presence of love, the most powerful and the grandest force in all the universe. Oh, and as we rest in that space of just feeling that love within us and beginning to sense the way that it is that energetic that expands beyond the confines of the human body, we also sense that presence of love in this room. How wonderful it is to remember again that there is no place where God is not. And therefore, right here, right now, in this very space, whether we are joined together in the sanctuary of this building, or we are joining by the sound of my voice through the technologies that brilliant minds have brought us, we recognize God, the infinite source of all wisdom. And so as we anchor ourselves in these truths, in the ideas that have been spoken about this morning, in the way that love is that starting place, that we fan the embers of that which always lies within, and this flame then becomes a great golden light that moves and spreads out beyond our physical body, that gives us a sense of cleansing, that takes us back to our source and back to truth. And that it is the very essence of activity, divine activity in the human body, that heals what ails us. And so for all those people who have been impacted by pandemic in any way, we recognize the vibration of love, the eternality of this force of life that is the life of our being and every other living thing on this planet. And where there is anything within our own being that desires healing or a greater expression of truth and well-being, we simply call on that force of love, that drawing force, to go into the nooks and the crannies and the spaces that might be darkened in the shadows. And we know that there is healing, that there is cleansing, that there is revealing of greater and greater truths. And in this way, we begin to allow ourselves to glow that golden glow of divine reality. And so I feel that love of God. I feel it and I know it. I can taste it. And I understand it to be that infiniteness of that which created us. And feeling that stirring, we now just allow ourselves to be vessels so that God's love and God's grace, as it comes to us, as it pours over us, it then is alchemized in a new way to be something more powerful that influences, that impacts others around us, that has a consciousness of change and of goodness and of beauty and of truth, of perfect order and of absolute joy. So we just allow Spirit itself to express through us and as us, so that we are instruments of the divine. Therefore, we stand together, and this day we come together in spiritual community as a family, as an expression of the soul of something that was started so many decades ago and continues to be an expression of love, of God's sweet, unending love. And so for this new awareness, for the success of this stewardship campaign, the way in which we are seeding our future in times where there are question marks, and yet we can stand in pure confidence and know that it is indeed the desire of the universe for there to be an expression of love and light in the West Valley that is us. I say thank you, God. Thank you, life. Thank you, infinite Spirit, for this renewing of the eternal wisdom that we carry within us. And I release it into the universe, knowing that it is already done, already circulated, already come back. I say thank you, life. I let it be, and together we say, and so it is. Amen.
I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed.
All right. Thank you, Matt Brooks. Now is the time for our giving affirmation. So, as you can see, we are changing up the service a little bit. Some of you guys are new, so I just want to let you guys know that we are not passing out the offering plate. We have our tithing boxes are in the back of the room, and there's also one in the bookstore as well. So we are going to say our giving affirmation together, and we are trying to put it up on the projector, but we are having some technical advancement challenges. So if you know it, we should all know it because we say it every Sunday. I still read it. So let's say our giving affirmation together, knowing that we're always in that circulation of love that Reverend Karen was talking about. I live in a consciousness of good. Divine love blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God, and so it is.
in the moment. Feels good, don't it? Feels good, don't it? Only got one life, live in the moment. Feels good, don't it? Feels good, don't it? Only got one life, live in the moment. Feels good, don't it? Feels good, don't it? Only got one life, live. Oh, 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 it feels so good to be alive. Oh, 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 it feels so good to be alive. One more time. Oh, 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 it feels so good to be alive.
Up. Whoop, there I am. That's a wrap, everybody. Thank you for being here, and I love you. This is so good. This just feels so good in the heart and the soul of this place. So, see you again, whether it's on the recording or you're here in the building. And don't forget, we now have a way for you to reserve your place, and you can reserve a few weeks in a row. That's it.
Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.